Hey guys, this is a disclaimer before I start the video. I realized after I finished the video and I was editing that for some reason when I right click and start typing stuff in the blueprints, we could probably show you. Oh, we can't, is the problem. Like, I don't think you can see this menu. Like I don't think there's anything here, but like that looks probably like it spawned out of thin air. Because like when I'm right clicking, there's a menu that pops up. Here, let me pull the thing up to my other window so I can double check. Yeah, it doesn't pop up, but like I'm selecting stuff from a menu. So that might make this a bit tougher to follow along with, but just so you know why it looks like things are appearing out of thin air, that's probably why. Anyways, on to the video. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to integrate the player build system into the ACF sample example. Specifically, I'll be showing you how to gather resources and put down structures so that it uses the inventory of ACF. So I'm going to assume that you already have the player build system migrated over and that you've enabled the Apex destruction plugin, because that's what's needed for the player build system. From there, what we're going to do is type sample. We're going to open up our sample player blueprint. Let it load. And dock that in there. And we're going to go and grab the other player, come in here, and we're going to copy some things over. I've already rebound this button because I believe it uses Q by default. I would recommend rebinding it to something else since ACF uses a different button. You can just do that up here. So we're going to copy these 6 things. Copy, drag them over to here. It's my own test stuff. And just drop them anywhere in here. I'm not going to cover the damage part, so we can delete that. So now we have rotating mesh, toggle building menu, actually pressing it down. This is to cancel out of the building, and this is to interact. So we already have an interact in ACF, so what we want to do is kind of cut those, X, and paste them over here. We want it so while we're interacting, we want it to consider this key down, and while we're not interacting, be released. File that, and oh yes, obviously, we'll want to add the player building component to our character. There we go. Good to go. Next, we want to make sure that we have some inventory. I made an item. You can use potions if you want to, but I just made an item for simplicity's sake and applied it. So I've got raw iron. I've got a bunch of them. Seems good to go. You can see here in my inventory, 19 raw iron. Next step would be to open build part data, which I believe is in here. Building blueprints, build types, right here. And we're going to want to open the original thing in the top right corner. So this is the current way they keep track of the resources it uses, to place stuff down, etc. That's what we're going to be covering first is placing structures down and using the what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add our own variable here. We'll call it, let's see, ACF building cost. And it's going to be base items that are an array. And then we'll save that. And we can close that. So now when we come over here, if we click on something like the wooden foundation, down here we can see it has a cost. So if we click a plus on that, you now see we can set it to whatever we want. So we start with raw iron, so we can make this cost raw iron for simplicity's sake. Let's say they cost 2 each to build. And you can have multiple of these if you want to have many costs. That's no problem at all. You would have to change each one of these to have a thing down here. We're just going to cover one. You can do them all yourself later. Easy enough. Okay. We'll save that. Make sure it's there. Yes. Next step, we're going to come back out here, and we're going to open this BP Build Master right next to it. We're also going to open the player building component. This is where we're going to be doing most of our editing, is in these 2 files. Probably also close these people. Oh, if okay. So the first thing we want to do is down here with deduct resources. This is at the top left corner of the player build component. You'll see right here, deduct resources. Okay, from here, what you're going to want to do is add another input. Call this ACF, build in cost. Call it whatever you want, of course. We base items, and it'll be an array. And then I don't think we will need this one anymore over here. Delete that. And this will also need an input of, good, it already has it for us. And we can call this source. And that will be passed into here. So next we want to find the references to this. We can either find references, we'll just, and the first one will be this one. Next will be over here, and you'll see there's an error. It's because it's not passing the thing. So you just Alt-click to get rid of that line, and down here, and grab that up in here. This probably isn't correct because this is upgrading, but I'm not covering upgrading. You might have to have its own upgrade cost, kind of like how we added its own regular cost. But for simplicity's point of this tutorial, I'm just going to connect that so it at least compiles. Same with down here. I'll be removing these just so it compiles. You'll also have to do something with repair to figure this out as well. I'm not covering this, I'm just making it compile. Now we'll have this over here is invalid. Yes. Must have an input wired into it. Okay, so that's fine. We're just going to remove this anyways, because we're going to cover this later. This is the adding part. Compile. Good. So next we're going to hop into here. First we can get rid of all that stuff. And we can rename this. So we're going to come over here into functions, player build system, resources, change resource amount. So we're going to build a new one actually. This is going to be deduct resource amounts. And this will have our base items, ACF resources, and we'll come back over here, and we're actually going to call that instead. So Alt-click, delete that, deduct resource amounts. Then we'll hop in here. So we're gonna build this now. I'm just gonna open it up on the screen because I have it already built, so I can follow along easier for you. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go through each of these items. And I made a few assumptions because I'm not building a general tutorial. Technically, I did this for my game, so hopefully this works for you guys. But what we're going to do is we're going to get the owner of this component. So I'm going to assume that every player has this component on it. So, and I'm going to cast that to our sample player, because that's what I did at the start of this tutorial, is we put it on the sample player. If you have a different thing, this may be different for you, but the principles stand. So from here we'll be able to get our equipment component that is on the player. That is his inventory, basically. Well, it's the equipment component. To get the inventory, we have to get inventory, which we will want to do. We'll want to do that because we're going to want to compare each item in here to each item in here. If we connect these two. Okay. So for each of the base items, what we're going to do is we're going to break them so we can get the class and the count. Then we're going to do the same thing down here with the inventory items. Break the inventory items. And then from the item component itself, we're going to do get class. And this is kind of a hacky solution, mostly because I couldn't really come up with a better one. But we're going to compare if these are equals. This way we can compare base items and inventory items, because I don't know a good way to compare them otherwise. So we can throw a branch off that. Clean's sake, we'll add it over here. So this says, for every item, is it an item in our inventory? If it is, we'd want to remove that item. So we'll get our equipment component. Remove item. Because this is for placing structures down, so we'd want to remove it. How many would we want to remove? Well, that would be the cost of the base item. So here, which item? Well, the item it matched with, which is right here. It's pretty well, most of it. Yeah. Not sure. Files. Can't find a pin. Does it just need to be refreshed? It does. Okay, I believe that's it for that. Yes. We're also going to check out that other component that we had open. It crashed when my thing crashed. Over here. We're just going to compile it. Should have an error for the server deduct resources, because we no longer that. Instead, we use this. We just expand it up that file, and it's good to go. This is for placing the actual structure. Okay, if we play now, we will get a few errors. Perfect. Oh yes, this has nothing to do with what I just did. It's just something when you're integrating the player build system that I forgot to do, which would be here. Cast to building character. That's their building character in their sample demo. You want to cast it to our player. ACF sample player. Convert to pure. Player building Get player. There we go. Beat that. Save. That works better. So you see we can't place it. And this is also to do with their system, not anything that we've done so far. And this is changed in that BP build master. I'm just gonna save it just in case I crash again. Shouldn't, but settings, static mesh floors. So this is what you can place it on. So right now, apparently you can only place it on a cube. So if we go and click on our floor, you can see down here it is SM template map floor. What we want to do is click a plus, SM template map floor. File, save. And let's see if it goes. It does. And you see I have 17 inventory raw iron, 15 now. I don't think it updates, but if you open and close it, it does. So close. There you go. It is now using our resource. But something to keep in mind, see it's at 1, shouldn't be able to place more, but we totally can, and apparently it overflows. This is because we don't actually check to see if we can place it. We just remove the resource. So that's the next step. This should be in the player building component as well, I believe, and I think it is down here on the bottom. When you actually press the mouse down is where they check. So they check resources down here. Build requirements. Yes. Let me just check something here. So we'll have to change this so that it'll have base items again. ACF built-in cost, base items, and we'll add those in. This. Okay, same thing for me. For upgrade and stuff. Again, here you'd instead of wanting to pass building costs, you'd want to pass it upgrade costs. We're just not covering upgrade. But yeah, it's the same place I added building costs, you would add upgrade costs. And I think it might be everywhere. Yeah. Okay, so we'll head back down here to build requirements. Okay. We're going to want to delete basically everything that's in here. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. I'm going to open it up on my other monitor. So I haven't done this before. This one looks pretty straightforward. And it's the same basic principle as the other one. For each, we're going to, in fact, we can copy it from our deduct. This section here, the get owner, blah blah blah, get equipment. So this is getting our inventory. We're going to do the same thing of the for each. This time we're just basically making sure, do we have all the required materials? Just looking at my code, I might have a bug. This might only work with one item cost things. Like if it only has iron, if it has like iron and wood, it might not work, but it should be very simple to change. But I'm just gonna follow through so I don't spend an eternity on this video. Same concept. Break this. Apparently we're gonna autosave. Break this apart. We're going to break this apart. We're going to get our class. Oops. Get class. We're going to see if these two are equal. so we're going to branch. I'm sure most of this logic seems quite familiar from the other one. In fact, there's probably a way to not waste multiple checks on this by combining them for efficiency. Lots of ways to improve this, in fact. Most of which I will probably do at some point. We're also going to check here. This one. We want to make sure in our inventory we have greater than or equal to the amount of items that it costs, is another branch. So these two branches are basically, do we have the item in our inventory? Yes. Do we have enough of that item in our inventory? Yes. Or no, we'll find out. Yeah, so here's the mistake where I have return node here. Should probably add, it's a success or not. Output node. Call this success. Success. Just offhand, if you have multiple items, you might want to add some counter or something like that, and if the counter is equal to the number of items in the for loop, then it's successful. That would make more sense, but I'm not going to change it. So, and then we're going to have it return false at the end of this. It's basically we've either made it or we haven't. Again, this works for one item. That's what we're going to cover. I'm realizing now that's not a good solution, and I will go change that on my project afterwards. But yes, this should at least stop us. So, there we go. And I have a feeling this one will also want us to do the same thing. Compile, save, boom. I think that should pretty well be everything now. So now we got our foundations, and apparently we can't place it at all. That's not good. Oh, I actually probably have a guess. Yes, I just literally did not connect this to this. That was actually really fast debugging, at least, thank goodness. Okay. So, let's see, we have 19, so we should be able to place a bunch of these, and eventually, yeah, right here. It won't let me place more. You can hear me clicking. O is to get out, that's what we keybinded it to in our person. You can bind it to whatever you want. And you'll see I only have one, so it won't let me build more. This menu itself, where it says it costs 20 wood, etc., that's part of the UI. You guys fix that on your own. Just because that's not that complex, I don't think. Okay, on to the resource gathering part. So, it's about 50%. Some people will be happy enough just with this, if they don't need the resource gathering, like if they gather resources from killing enemies or etc. So, if you're done, thanks for watching. If not, on to the resource gathering part. Just for organization, because they didn't even do it here for some reason, we're gonna make our own resources folder. In there, we're gonna make a master folder. So we're gonna build a blueprint. It's gonna be an ACF actor. Gonna have an inventory, and we'll call this ACF master resource. Open that up. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're going to want to add a couple things to this in class settings. One thing for sure we know it's going to have is a building interface, because we're using the player building component. Some other things we're going to want is a mesh, unless you want invisible resources. Static mesh. We'll call as resource. What else do we want? Okay, we'll want name. Names work. So we can see what we're covering. It's a string. And then this way is probably not done again, ideally. So we'll have resource collection amount. And this way it does work, just probably way better ways. I'll explain what this is momentarily. Actually, I'll explain what it is now. Okay, so basically if we have wood and we want to harvest 3 of it in the child, set this to 3. Oops, not to -1, 3. So it's basically how much of the thing we are harvesting. So if we're harvesting multiple things like wood and leaves, and you want to harvest 3 wood and 2 leaves, you have to set this up. I think it's not awful, but maybe it's not ideal. Okay, now we're in here. I cleared that? Yeah. We're going to implement their interact function, because this calls from the building interface. File. We're going to search the player building component, which is over here, for master resource. Master resource. As you can see, it comes up with one thing. This is on interaction, just on the, no, it should come up. So we're building our own resource, which is the cast to ACF master. Also just gonna check my OBS to make sure this is recording this whole time. Yep. We're gonna convert to pure, and we're gonna replace this one with ours. Wow, good. I believe there's a few other places we should probably, yeah, I think there's here, blueprints, HUD. I think they have it in the building HUD if I remember correctly. 2 places. So graph, do the same thing, search for master resource. There should be 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. And we're gonna do our same thing. From here, I find it's easier to leave the other one and just ACF master resource. Kind of steal where it's going. And then kind of just slide it in place where it was. So you don't accidentally miss what nodes go where. On to the next one. Resources down here. Cast to ACF master resource. Same thing, cast failed, goes down here. This we're going to do get name down here. Put that in here. Delete, and success is over here. This is, and delete and slide it nicely in place. And this too. And then for the last one. So this is basically saying show the name of the thing when we're doing stuff. Down here, sure you know what to do at this point. Cast to ACF master resource, and this is the last one, I swear. Here, 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 complete, and beautiful. Compile. Okay, so now we placed their master resource with our master resource, except our master resource does nothing. So, next step is we will want to create a new function. Well, we don't have to create a new one. We could technically change this one. First of all, over here, I guess, deduct, this should be dragged up into the resources component, so it's applicable. Change resource amounts. Let's make this called add resource amounts. Add. That's a good name. Definitely refresh. Yeah. And it has everything we need, which is basically just the input. Yes, except we don't want it to be base items this time. Again, this is mostly because I'm not good at converting base items to inventory items and all that stuff. But for this one, we're going to be doing inventory items. It still works the same. Let me just follow along with where I'm supposed to be. ACF. We'll call it, yeah, I'll call it resources. And in here, see how stellar, or lack thereof, I should say, their code is, and delete it all. And oh man, what were they doing? Okay. This one, I believe, is like really straightforward to build. Yeah, I'm not even going to follow along with my other one. I know how to do this. For each item, I'm going to break the item. I'm going to get. We've done this part before. Cast to sample player controller. You can also copy this from, or not copy, player blueprint. Convert to purecast. You can copy this from the other one. We've done this many times before. Get the equipment component. And add item to inventory. This one's real. Let's see. And basically, the item we're going to add is this item. And the amount we're going to add is, wow, you guessed it, amount. Complex, I know. We're going to actually remember to connect our stuff this time because we learned from our mistakes of last time. Compile. Somehow, nothing. I guess that's good. Oh. That's better. Okay. Down here. Add. They already did it for us. Okay. Unreal Engine, you are too smart. All this ACF resource function, sure. Don't mind my terrible naming schemes. Okay, what's gonna come up? Oh, okay. Yes. I think I just need to refresh this. Yes. Okay, so this note, it could go for like a while, and I don't think it matters. Like, it says problems, but there's no actual problems, so I'm fairly positive it's safe to ignore this and everything's perfectly fine. I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, so it's actually pretty straightforward for that. What else? Right, yep, did that part. Oh wait, no, that's part. So in here, we're gonna have to create a function. I don't think I have it open on my other one. Give me a second to open it up. Blueprints, resources, master. Okay. So we'll create a function. Call this get resources. Yeah. So we're going to add another component onto this. I know it already has an equipment component, but we're going to add another one. This is on the ACF master resource again, just in case you lost track of where we are. So equipment component. We're going to call this harvested resources. And this is also kind of a cheat hack, and I'll explain why I do this one. So this is a little bit more complicated for gathering resources. So we're going to do, yeah, we're going to start by getting the equipment component that we have here. Get inventory. We're going to check to see if it exists, basically. Is greater than 0. So basically see if it has any items left. Because if it doesn't, well, we can't really do much, and we're saving ourselves a headache, and we're just gonna destroy. Actor. So this will just delete our resource because it shouldn't be there in the world. Like if it's a mesh, just get rid of it. It no longer exists anyways. Then we will do, assuming it does have items, we'll do a for each on its remaining items. This is where we will break this. So we need the information out of it. So basically, if it has stuff we want to check, we'll do a simple check first, just to make sure there's no glitch. Where we check. Basically, is it greater than 0? Branch. That'll be our first check. Is the item more than 0? If it's not, I personally destroy the actor for what I wanted. And my example of this is if a resource has leaves and wood, and you harvest all the wood, but it still has like 80 leaves in it, I don't want to just be harvesting leaves from that point on. So I'm just going to destroy it. You don't have to do this. You could leave it and harvest all the leaves. Just kind of skip this iteration of the for loop and go to the next one. But I'm just doing what I did. So that is the case. Then next thing we'd want to check, I guess, would be, is this more than the resource collection? Let's get this done here first. An example is there's 2 wood remaining and our resource collection amount is 3 for wood. So that would be, we wouldn't want to get 3, we want to get 2 because there's remaining. So we want to just get a copy. Maybe one's more efficient than the other. I'm not. And let's get it at this index. So for item 1, we want to get that, like, you know, I'm bad at explaining, sorry. Like item 1 would be wood, we'd want to get the wood amount. Item 2 would be leaves, we'd want to get the leaves amount, because this add stuff for each one. This would be wood, this would be leaves. We have neither, because this is just the master resource though. And then we'll compare this, see if this is greater than or equal to this one. Let's do that the other way around, in fact. I don't know if it matters, but or equal to. I kind of want to cast my byte to an integer. The same up here. I don't know if it matters. You could probably just leave it as byte. I just I'm more comfortable with that. Okay, this will be yet another branch. This is after it's greater than 0, then we check to see if it's greater than the harvesting amount. And then we have two cases here. It's either true or false. So what we want to do if it's true is we'll want to add items to temporary inventory, which is the harvested resource. The weird part with this function here is it'll output an array of inventory items. Say gather, excuse me, gather resources. Inventory item. So you might not, the question I ran into is why wouldn't we just add it to, we'll create a local variable. Don't do this, I'm just showing you why I did not do it this way in case you're wondering. Inventory item. Get. If we want to add something to this, it has to be an item like this. And the problem was we don't want to add this whole item. We only want to add this amount of it, 3, whatever. But adding an item for some reason, like making an inventory item, like it won't let you set the count. Like I can't split this, which I kind of hope that gets changed maybe at some point. I don't know. Seems there's no reason not to, but clearly there's loopholes that exist to let you do it anyways. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it into a temporary inventory because you can add items. Add item to inventory, and here you can set a count, and then later on we can get inventory, which will return us an array of inventory items. So whatever. So true, add item to an inventory. And what item do we want to add? This item, of course, right here. And how many do we want to add? Well, we've confirmed that there is greater than or equal to the amount. So we want to add the full harvested amount here. Take that off. There we go. That'll cover that one case. Yeah, I guess we'd also want to remove an item from its inventory. So we've added to this temporary inventory. Now we want to remove it from the other inventory. And I know this is like a little complicated to follow along with. Resource gathering is probably the more complicated part because of this tricky loophole. We want to do the same thing here though, so we can just drag this to this and this item. We're removing the same amount as we put into this one. I like compiling just to make sure, I don't know, no problem. False will be the exact same thing basically. Add item to inventory. Remove item. Same item. Both of these, the only difference is this time the count would just be this count. That's how many we have remaining. If there's only one remaining, we don't want to add 3. Again, 3 is just an arbitrary number I'm using. We just want to add the 1 from count. Here, it's a nicer note over here. Count. Connect these up. And I swear we're almost done with this section. All that's left is more or less to return it. I'd say more or less because so after the for loop's completed, we want to drag down, and we need, well, I guess we have it, that's convenient. We'll name this, if you didn't follow along, like I told you not to, You need to create a local inventory item array anyways. And we'll call this local items gathered. And we want to set so we'll get the inventory of the harvested stuff. This is what we'll be returning, right? We've harvested a bunch of things, we put them in inventory, and now we want to return that inventory. So we can probably just go ahead and set this to this temporary one over here. And connect this completed node. This is when it's done. Then we set it to over here. And this goes straight to the return node. You might be like, well, why set it to a temporary one? What? You have multiple outputs? Okay, well, I don't know what that was. Oh, I must have added new pin. Okay, so you might be asking, why do we have a temporary thing? Well, that's because the first time we harvest, this inventory will get set to 3 wood. The next time we harvest, it'll get set to 6 wood, because it just will add 3 more. And we don't want it to add 3 more. We want it just to have 3. What we have to do is go and clear this inventory. And it would be fantastic if there was just like, you know, a clear inventory or something, but there's not. But that's okay, we can do it ourselves. So, go 4 each on every element inside of it. Do this here. And we'll say remove item. Remove from inventory. And what item do we want to remove? Well, the one we just got, of course. So we break it apart so that we can actually connect these up. Sorry if this is a little bit messy. You can tidy it up on your phone. There we go. And that's every element we want to remove from it. And then when our for loop is completed, oh jeez, this is so messy that I need to tidy up myself. Just don't want this video to go forever for you guys. Yeah, whatever. When it's completed, then we return our items. So this will delete all of our items. And that's it. Pretty well. I think that's it for everything else. Compile, save. I'm gonna double check my wires real quick. It's good. It looks solid. So hopefully it's solid. Okay, then we'll go back to the event graph and we can now call this get resource. Wait, what did we call ours? We did. Doesn't take any inputs because it has access to all these things, so it's not really needed. And let me check the player building component. We did change this so that it needs source. This is fine. I'm not going to remove this quite yet. I remember there being a problem. We'll do that at the end for tidy up. Let's see. File. Okay, nothing complained. What was the name of everything? Server resources collected. Okay. Server resources collected. This has a reference to it because this is the player building component. And we want to add the resources we collected, which is right here. Compile that, save that, And I think that's gonna crash when I run, probably because it's gonna complain. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. That's expected though, that's okay. Failed to compile a master resource. Well, master resource is a loser. Who cares about it? Just disconnect it. Okay, we can play. Well, that's what I meant to disconnect. Disconnect all its crap. That's its original master resource. We've made our own version, so who cares about it? I destroy. Just want to click play, make sure it runs. It does run. Okay, so we've built the parent. This is what all the children will inherit from. Now we need a test to see if anything we did actually works. Wouldn't that be sad right now if we found out it didn't? So go back to our resources, master, and we will create a child. As you saw earlier, I have an item called iron, so I'm just going to build raw iron. Apparently I can't have spaces. Raw iron. Drag that into my master, out of my master here, and we'll open it up. And we can see it's got a bunch of nothing. So go to the mesh component, static mesh, let's add one. So you should have this one as well because it comes with the player building component. Always add your own though, doesn't really matter. So that's that. Then if we go to class defaults, we'll see name. I will add one myself, raw iron. How much of it do we want to gather? So I would like to gather, I don't know, 3. 3 seems like a good amount. And then we have to go to the equipment component and give it starting items. So starting item, expand, set to my raw iron. How many do I want? Let's do some odd amount, 13, some not divisible by 3 number. And that might actually be everything I need to do. Yeah, I think that's literally all you need to build resources now. Drag it out into the world, and then we pray. Okay, so open my inventory up. You can see collect raw iron. That's exactly what we want. Interact with it. And just like that, it's increasing my inventory. 3, 6, 9, 12, and this one should only have 1 remaining inside of it. And it does. What? Okay. Okay. Indeed. Make a mistake? Has 13. Could only collect 13. Well, okay, let's see what I missed. Oops. Definitely remove the item from the equipment. Oh, it should destroy itself. When the item is 0. Huh. Some quick debugging. We'll print that out. $13, 10, 7. This is looking like it's working. 4. Go up to 35. It should go up to 35 here. Oh, it overflows. I must. Maybe I've got these backwards or something. The inventory greater than this. This should go to 0 if done right. Then add this amount. Oh yeah, here's the problem. Right here. Otherwise, do this. Sorry about that, guys. So much for a flawless tutorial. This should work much nicer. Save us time. 5. So we don't have to wait so long to test. Go up to 20. What is happening? Do this run again. If the item has more than the resource gathered amount, add the item to inventory. Good. Does not. Do greater than or equal. Pull up what I have here. Okay. He's back. I might have these back. This might want to go up here. Oh wait, these both drag off the same stupid thing. Oh my god. Get you. I bet a lot of people were following along and were like, yep, what are you doing? Yeah, otherwise you would only want to add the count. Yes, as if we only have 2, we don't want to add 3, we only want to add the 2. Please say this. Slight problems, but I feel like, yeah, it's probably not worth my time to delete the last bits here. Put this to first amount to not last default. Harvesting 3 at a time. It has 5. I think it's when I'm destroying the actors, the problem, right? Yeah. Because it harvests 3 the first time and 2 the second. Yeah, and then it'll do 2 again. That's the problem. Yeah, okay. So I need to flag it for destroy. It's the only problem that's but I'll just say how to do that. Everyone's time. Basically after here, flag for destroy, and then destroy it right before the return node, I guess. Because you don't want it to stay after it's reached 0. And then, yeah, that would be that. So I think that's pretty well everything. You now see we can harvest resources and build with those same resources. Up to 22 and back down to 20. Thank you for following. Sorry it was a confusing mess. Hope this does help some people though.